Tag TV, and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. Aggregators HTML, XFM, RSS, open APIs, collaboration, micro formats, social software. It all adds up to Web 2.0, a term describing the trend in the use of web technology and web design to enhance creativity, information sharing, and collaboration among users. These concepts have led to the development of web-based communities like social networking sites, wikis, blogs, and folkominies. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, June 17, 2008, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mandela. Web 2.0, the Internet as Platform, is the top conversation at Internet conferences across the U.S. and beyond. The philosophy of mutually maximizing collaborative intelligence and added value for each participant by formalized and dynamic information sharing and creation. It's today's Tech Talk topic, as Tino speaks with Heyl, Chief Operating Strategy Officer for Concept Hub and recognized thought leader in social and collaborative technology. Sherry was a key organizer of SOCOM 07, the first social media unconference in Metro Atlanta, and is also on the planning committee for SOCOM 07. Chair of the Technology Association of Georgia Enterprise 2.0 Society, Program Director for the Atlanta Electronic Commerce Forum, on the National Advisory Board for Kennesaw State University's Communications Department, and a 2007 nominee for Woman in Technology Woman of the Year. Business development and collaborating with clients to develop online communities of raving fans. The Tech Talk looks at Web 2.0 as Tino speaks with Heyl.
Sherry, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're the expert. You're one of the experts, certainly, that I've gotten to know, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I think we need to start, just so all of our listeners are on the same page, with the broadest question: what is Web 2.0?
That is a very broad question, and it really depends on the perspective you're taking. For a lot of technology people, they will talk about the software and the technology, the collaboration, the open source, things of that nature. From my perspective, it's a new shift in how we're communicating, not only with our audience or with the people we're trying to market to or to the public, but also the way we're communicating internally as well with our employees and with our vendors, as opposed to broadcast messaging, which is really what the technology enabled online for so long. We now can not only have a participatory conversation, but we could have one that's out in the open where anybody could listen in and anybody can join in on the conversation. And what this is doing is very, very much the same way the Internet has disrupted how we communicated when it first landed on our desk. This is disrupting communications all across the board. Human resource now has to worry about the reputation of the company because their employees are out there collaborating with other teams out there on the open web. So it's really shifting everything that each department does.
Is there seems like there would be a lot of tension in what you just said in respect to traditional and new, and certainly that's the term that we describe under the category of disruptive, but this open source versus protection and privacy, and do you see that as one of the areas that we're trying to work through as a society?
Work through is a good way of putting it. There is a lot of tension. There's a lot of people who wish this would just go away and go back to the way it used to be, or they just want to bury their head and believe it's not real until something happens and they have to face with the reality of it. But it is real, and it's not going away. And it's not just the younger generation who's coming in with these expectations, though. They are the ones pushing up with the most force, saying, we want to collaborate, and we've lived our lives online forever. What's the big deal of putting it all out there? Whereas the other generation, maybe your baby boomers, have been more private their whole life, and they're not understanding why anybody would talk openly online about absolutely anything. However, with that said, baby boomers are coming online in vast droves, connecting with each other and collaborating with each other. So it's this shift, but it's not as difficult as most people will think. Companies mostly need to start looking at their guidelines more and looking at how they communicate with their employees offline to make sure that those communications don't go online.
So in a broad company, there's obviously you mentioned HR and there's marketing, and each department I think would have their own issues. But do you see a particular department or certain departments that are more affected by this shift in communication?
It seems that it falls into public relations quite a bit. It's a way to get your message out to the public without necessarily having to go through mainstream media channels, or it's a way to get the attention of mainstream media channels. There's also a huge reputation management concern with the conversations happening online, which would fall into the PR department. But I think the most of the opportunity falls into the R&D departments, the ability to find out what the competition's doing, to find out what your customers are saying that they want or what they don't want, and to be able to transcend your R&D department into something that's serving the public based on what they're saying they like or don't like.
So as we move into this new world, what are some of the biggest threats to a company because of this particular shift?
Some of the biggest threats is not participating and then having a conversation get so out of hand without them being aware of it, and they have no friends or no recourse to manage that conversation. So simply by not paying attention and not connecting with some of the people in the online community, if anything were to go wrong about their company reputation, they have no ability to fix it or to be part of that conversation. It's already too late at that point. The other biggest threat is to lose market share to competitors from around the world. With the open source and with the ability to collaborate without geographic or time boundaries, people can create new products, new services that solve the same problem as your company does. They could get it to the market really, really fast, and oftentimes very inexpensively. Now, they may not have a business structure that will help them survive, but they may have enough of a offering that at least disrupts your business and takes off maybe with somebody else's, under somebody else's control who took the idea. So business is moving so fast now that competition is just coming at everybody from every direction. And it's a matter of keeping your ear to the ground and knowing what's going on.
Now, just if we take one element of this in this communication side of life, and you have the option of communicating internally as a company using more of an open system, collaborative within a large company, let's say, and then companies also have a chance to open their doors, more transparency, more communication, more two-way communication versus pushing out. Do you see most companies starting with an internal communication mechanism, using this Web 2.0 thought process, or is every company different?
Every company is different, but what I found is that a lot of companies feel more comfortable starting internally to learn the tools, to learn how it works, to make their mistakes behind closed doors, if you will. However, many companies are at least listening to what's going on out in the marketplace. They may not be ready to comment on a blog or to start their own blog, but many companies are starting to listen and starting to pay attention. One of the drivers I found recently happening is that employees are starting to notice, or companies are starting to notice, how many employees are in Facebook, and they're in Facebook collaborating with each other and connecting with each other from across the country and across departments. And they're recognizing this and saying, well, we need a Facebook application behind the firewall instead of having our employees out there, in the open world collaborating about maybe trade secrets. So some of the external communications is really driving the need for internal communications.
What opportunities have been made available because of Web 2.0?
Well, the small business person can start a business or develop a product and get it out to their market without a lot of money. And the key there is that they're finding their relevant market. They're finding their niche audience instead of having to spend lots of money on broadcast television or print ads in big magazines. That's the theme of the long tail, is that you can have the most ridiculous item in the world but have enough of a customer base who's interested that you make a good living, loving what you're doing.
Living, loving, or loving.
Living, loving. There was a reason that slipped out. Two thoughts at once. So it really does enable people to do what they love, and that's the small businesses, but also with people in larger organizations. If they're given a voice to their organization to say, you know, I'm in marketing, but this is what I see happening in sales, and this is why I would make a shift happening in sales because of these open communications. Or maybe I'm in customer service, but I have some ideas about what marketing can do. And that cross-pollination helps people to stretch their abilities and understand how each department works together. And it also empowers employers to put the right people in the right departments by being able to recognize where their interest is and where their talent may be.
There, you know, to me, just being a layman at this and having some experiences on my inside the organization and outside, there are some interesting challenges to try to be productive using some of the new tools, and we'll remain non-specific with the tools, but one of the collaborative tools where several people that are in a group, whether they're inside the company or, let's say, in my case, are outside the company, and they'll say, okay, let's use XYZ tool to communicate so that we can all share and add to, and et cetera, et cetera. And then what seems to happen is you get a certain percentage of people that use it and others that just for whatever reason it would prefer getting an email about it or some other method. Do you see that happening more broadly, and is that just a matter of time before people get comfortable with utilizing the tools?
It's actually a huge obstacle. One of the things you touched upon is that we already are all on the Internet, and we're already communicating with email and with some of the tools that have been around for 10-plus years. And so it's going to be very challenging for some people to break away from that email to move to another different communication tool. One of the things I noticed 2.5 years ago when I started looking at all the trends and all the tools is there's no sales department behind these tools. There's nobody out there going door to door saying, this is why you should use a blog, this is why you should use a wiki, necessarily. And therefore there's no training behind it. There's no support behind these tools. So it's really been a grassroots effort and come up and having people to say, well, let's figure out what this is and how to use it. And that's going to be very challenging for mass adoption of some of these tools unless they get somebody in who helps them with the strategy and helps them understand where it may be more efficient to stay with email and where it may be more efficient to move those email communications onto a blog, as an example.
Let me give you challenge number 2. So being that I'm in a position where running a technology association, you would tend to get invited to join lots of groups. So there's a lot of competition out there. You mentioned some of them, Facebook, MySpace. There's LinkedIn, there's Ning, there's 10 others that I think I've been invited to in the last 6 months. Do you see those all sorting out and sort of the strong will survive, or how will this all flesh out?
It's going to be a couple of different scenarios. One of the things we're seeing quite a bit is the ability to aggregate or to mash up, if you will, a couple of good words there, your networks together. I was just recently invited to Friend Feedster, I believe it's the one it's called, where I can actually see all the networks that my friends are in and what they're doing in each one of them. Flaxo Pulse has something similar to that
right
now. So what these developers are doing is they're taking the different social networks that we're involved with, and they're trying to put them together. So when you go into somebody's Facebook application, you don't just see their Facebook network, but you could see all about 20 other different networks they're part of as well. So there is this open ID movement. There is the movement of data portability, of bringing some of our networks together. But what I really recommend to people is to look at each network you're invited to similar to the way you would look at each offline networking event you're invited to. I would get invited to a TAG event. I would get invited to an AMA event or a PRSA event. And each time I'm invited to get in my car and drive somewhere, I have to decide what the value is of that event for me and what I want to get out of it. And so it's the same if I want to spend my time in Facebook or MySpace or somebody's Ming account and so forth. Is there value for me there, and is there value that I can add there, and how much time should I spend there? So truly everything that we do online today can be related to what we do offline, and the rules and the values are the same.
So there's a lot to digest here. If you're some of our listeners will be running companies or in positions where they can make a difference in this area. Where should they begin to adapt and embrace these changes?
They need to start first with their guidelines, to start reviewing their human resource and their PR guidelines, and to make sure that those guidelines in their organization are approaching some of these new trends, making sure that they are letting the employees know where things stand for them so that there's no surprises. The second thing is they need to find out what employees are doing online and see where the threats may be and where there may be opportunities. One of the knee-jerk reactions that happened a couple of years ago is a lot of companies told their employees they were not allowed to blog or they were not allowed to have a Facebook account. And in my opinion, that would be equivalent to saying you're not allowed to wear your logo shirt or your logo hat that we gave you out in public, because all people are doing when they're out online is they're representing their company to their network the same way they would do offline wearing a logo shirt. So there's a lot of opportunities by not only allowing your employees to be online, but to see where they're at and to see where there may be advantages for recruiting opportunities or business opportunities or sales opportunities. But awareness has to start first. And then the second thing is you could draw your roadmap once you have the awareness.
Now, you have a training that you're doing online that some of my people have participated in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I started for 2 years, actually. Many people asked me to run an online training class. And I did resist because when you're speaking about something that's so new and sometimes very foreign to people, they don't know what questions to ask, and they get kind of that deer in the headlights look, and it's hard to see that when you're doing an online training class. But after so much demand, I finally did decide to do a WebEx training. And the WebEx is wonderful in that you have the chat boxes where people can send you a private message. We do have the video camera. So each month we're offering a different class. We're starting to rerun a few of the classes, and the response has been great. Not only do they get the class, they get a PDF manual that I write, and they also get invited into a Ning network where they can continue to ask questions and get support from me and from their classmates on the subject that they sat in. So once they sat in a subject and the class was over, a week later they may have thought of a question. They still have the opportunity to continue that discussion within the Ning network.
Very good. So there's for our listeners, if people want to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the Web 2.0 world and get into some of the details and tactics so that you too can be a participant in this advancing technology. We've been talking with Sherry Heyl. And Sherry, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk today.
Thank you.